Ciao a tutti. Hello, 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 proffers. Uh, it's a pleasure to see you, some of you again, and some of you maybe the first time today. But it really is, I really am pleased to be here and do a recap of Brian Walshe, day 7. And I'm going to get right into it. The day started with the witness who was on the stand yesterday, who was being cross-examined. That was Matthew Sheen. And the cross-examination of him continued. And it continued in the same vein as yesterday. A couple of times the defense lawyer asked him a question that is not within his work experience. It's not part of his job. He couldn't answer it. But otherwise, there was nothing special about the end of the cross-examination, and the defense lawyer didn't spend a whole lot of time with him. Then we began a run of forensics experts by the prosecution. And in some ways, it was really interesting to me. There are 4 aspects to doing the DNA analysis. And they said it's collection or extraction, quantifying, amplifying, and separation and detection. And any forensics expert who is in this field is trained to do all 4. But in the Cohasset, or that area where they've got their forensics lab, they don't break it up that way. They don't break it up in terms of one person doing all 4 jobs. They don't break it up in terms of one person doing one job for all the forensics evidence in a particular case. So I said at one point, it seemed to me it would be like doing a Major League Baseball schedule in terms of figuring out who's doing what. So in order to get the foundation laid, that the collection was done appropriately, that the holding of the samples, the refrigeration and everything, that was done right, that the chain of custody was correct, and that they did all the proper protocols to make sure they eliminated, or at least limited to the most possible, any cross-contamination. It was that's what they were talking about. So they had all the experts talk about their credentials, and then what they did to make sure there was no cross-contamination. And then we listened to one after the other. One of them might have done 2 of the functions on 3 of the items. Another one might have done 1 of the functions on 5 of the items that were tested. It really was kind of an array of experts. So I'm going to give you their names because we heard all of them today. And it was Bryce Raymond, and he collected the samples from the refrigerator, and he removed them from the receptacle that they were in. He photographed all of them, and then he re-entered them in a receptacle and put them back in the refrigerator. Then we had the experts who, starting with Brian Kiesel, who did one or another part of those 4 parts. So of course, since the quantification has to come before you get to the amplification, since that's true, the experts who would have done the quantification in some ways testified before those who did most of the amplification. But as I say, there were several who did two jobs. I think one might have done 3 at one point, but that was only with regard to one specimen. And what they did was, it was everything that Matthew Sheen had gathered at the scene. Remember, he was noting the blood stains, or something that might have been blood, and he put those little white labels, and then he took a picture, and then he gathered the sample. Well, all of that he handed over to this lab. And now they took those bags, and they were in separate evidence bags. They took them then and did the next 3 parts of the laying the foundation, that what they had done was appropriate, and therefore they could testify as to the interpretation. So and I'm not going to talk about which jobs each of them did, but it was Brian Kiesel, Madison Frank, Emily Oliver, Mary Nagel, John Bregu, Karen Jacobson, and Catherine, I think it was Shaken. I didn't get her last name because there was some static, and I think the at that point I think the feed went dead for a little bit. And so they talked about how they did what they did when they would get the sample. The first thing they would do would be they would take ammonia, I believe it was, and then they would clean the work surface and they'd clean what they had, and then they would put down a sterile paper, and that was because they were trying to keep the work surface clean for the next person who would be working, who might not be working on this case, might be working on some other case, but they needed the work surface clean. But that person, again, would start with the ammonia or the cleaning solvent and then go through the same process. So I thought it was interesting to hear how they did it. But we spent a fair amount of time doing it because, Nurse Kristen, thank you very much. Does that mean you're a member? I don't know what these things mean. If so, I think you're the first. Welcome. And you have a badge of honor for being the first. That's really wonderful. Okay, so let me get back here. They did all that, and then we had the supervisor at the lab, Solomon Shaheen, who then interpreted the results that after the 4 stages, she then looked and interpreted the results, which by that time had been translated or transferred into a visible form, and were then I think came out in a printer, a printout, or at least she could see it on the screen. And among the items that she talked about, another one. God, thank you very much, Tiff Ritter. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's Josh Ritter's wife, who seems to be, I met her last night, and she's in charge, I think, of the backstage for him. And from my perspective, doing that show last night, she did a great job. There are 2 more, and I missed one, Josephine Santabora and Nacho's mom. I love that. Does that mean you never cook for them? So in any event, let me get back to it's hard. I know they're coming in too fast, and I don't want to miss any of you, but I don't want to be distracted by doing this summary. Can we put all of them up at the end so I can acknowledge everybody one by one and not miss someone? Because I'm really grateful. But anyway, let me get back to here. But thank you again. So she did the interpretation, and they focused on, remember from yesterday, that Matthew Shaheen said after he collects all the samples, he doesn't send everything over to the lab because the lab is overwhelmed with work. So he has to make some judgment calls that with regard to the items that look like they would have DNA, which ones were more likely that he would send. And so those are the ones they got. So they had the knife, they had the gray slippers, which I don't know why, but they bothered me more than anything else. They had what looked like blood on the inside of the slipper. The gray slippers, the head of the hammer, the handle of the hammer, the rug sample that was cut out, the Tyvek suit, and the hacksaw blade were the things that among the items that were tested at the lab to see if there was DNA or whether there was not DNA on them. And then also then tested for, could the expert say whose DNA it was. So, and I learned several new words today. I learned nonillion, which is 1 plus 30 zeros, and sextillion, which is 1 plus 21 zeros, and quintillion, which is 1 plus 18 zeros. And that was the degree, she didn't say it this way, but that was the degree of certainty that the expert had when she said the DNA belonged to Anna Walsh or to Brian Walshe in her testimony today. So so there were a number of items where the level of certainty was really very high. And I got a question during the trial a couple of times about what I thought the jury was getting out of all this. And I said, probably what I was getting out of it, which was it was her blood, and it was really, really, really certain it was her blood. And they found her blood on the slippers, on the head of the hammer, on the hacksaw blade, I believe on the Tyvek suit and the rug. No, none of her blood or Brian Walshe's blood on the knife. They found his blood or his DNA on some of those items, but more so it was her DNA, nothing on the knife. And with regard to the knife, we had another exercise, and I don't know what to call it, by the defense lawyer, because he spent what I consider to be a lot of time, probably not in, an absolute time, it was probably not a lot of time, but for me, it was a lot of time because I didn't see where it was going. He was emphasizing that there was no DNA of Brian Walshe's on the knife. And the other thing he did more broadly was to talk about, well, you can't be, you don't know whether sometimes there was a DNA of an unknown or an unidentified source. And he kept suggesting that, this might have mildly, that it might mean that it was somebody else, or you couldn't demonstrate that it was Brian Walshe. And the thing that befuddles me about it is they have admitted that Brian Walshe disposed of her body. So having done that, and with all the evidence of what happened to her body, I do not understand why the defense continues to try to poke holes in whether you can show it was Brian Walshe who did some of the things. I just don't understand it. There have been people in the chat who say, well, it's the defense's effort to sort of confuse the jury. And maybe that's true. I mean, that's what defense lawyers do when it's a really weak case sometimes, to create a reasonable doubt. But in this case, if the jury is paying attention, how could it conceivably confuse them to know that on a knife, his DNA is not there when he has said he disposed of the body? It's just beyond me. And you can see it got me so exercised. You see, it got my dander up, and I'm more excitable than maybe I should be. But in any event, that was the that seemed to me the focus of his defense. The other thing he does is, and I don't know whether it's him trying to show to the jury that he really knows the case, and he's really well informed, and therefore trust me, because he uses these really technical terms, and he will say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this means this, and you get the expert to say yes, yes, yes. And that it may be something that is impressive with the jury, and I'd be interested in what you all in the chat believe. But to me, it is not impressive. It's just somebody sort of blowing his own horn in ways that I don't think are particularly useful. But in any event, that's what he did. We didn't start on time today. The judge actually didn't even come on the bench till about 4 or 5 minutes after 9, and then they went off for a sidebar that lasted until about 5 or 10 to 10, so about a 50-minute sidebar. And it appears from what we learned later in the day that it related to the testimony of Jem Mutlu, or Mutlu. I apologize, I don't know how he pronounces his name. He was supposed to testify today, and he has been put off to tomorrow because of what I think happened at sidebar, whatever the argument was that was made there. And before he testifies, they're going to do a voir dire in the morning. So the actual trial, that is the taking of evidence in front of the jury, is now scheduled to go at 11, and at 10, and at 9, the lawyers and Jem Mutlu and the judge will be doing a voir dire, which I assume, I'm virtually certain, will be streamed. And for those of you who don't know, a voir dire means in French to see to say. And that's what we talk about when we say, when we're impaneling a jury, it's called a voir dire, when you're trying to find out enough about a juror to decide, as a lawyer for each side, is this a juror that's acceptable to you, or do you want to try striking or do you want to strike the juror? In a voir dire, what happens is you get in the voir dire that they're going to do tomorrow, what you get is a preview of what the testimony would be if the judge permits the testimony to happen. Now, I believe that Jim Mutlu will have a couple of things he will testify to. One of them will be, what the atmosphere was on New Year's Eve, which may in fact help the defense, because from the statements I've seen of his that have been published prior to the trial, he said it was a perfectly amicable evening. He didn't detect any tension or anything between Anna and Brian Walshe that would have caused anything. But he also can testify that Anna Walshe was on her phone a lot texting. And the case that the prosecutor wants to make for the texting is that it was Anna in touch with William Fostow, the man with whom she was having an affair, throughout the meal, and that Brian realized that's what she was doing. And this is part of the prosecution case, that he murdered her and he did it with premeditation. So that's why the prosecutors want that in. I don't know whether he has evidence with regard to the relationship of the two of them at other times. I don't know whether, Brian Walshe said that the 6-year-old came downstairs at one time. I don't know whether Jim Mutlu would testify to that, or in fact, whether that matters. It might matter if he would say it never happened. It will show Brian Walshe in another lie, but I don't know if that's why. So if it's something else, somebody in the chat may have a better guess. I confess to you, I do not have a good feel for what the issue is. But tomorrow at 9, we're going to find out, because there will be the voir dire of him. Then the judge will either decide that what they're doing the voir dire on comes in, it doesn't come in, that part of it can come in and not another part of it. And I think there are other things he'll be able to testify to that are not implicated by whatever this issue is that they're going to deal with tomorrow. The judge also, I think, said, but I can't swear to this, because sometimes on the feed, particularly if they're not talking into a mic, or they're not somewhere where you can hear it on a mic, it is not always easy to hear the judge or one of the lawyers when they are talking about something. And so I'm not quite sure what it is that the judge said. And Joel and I, who were both listening to this, had a different impression of what the judge said. But I thought she said that, because she was talking to the jury then, so she's facing, this way. I thought she said to the jury, you don't have to come. Well, she did say, you don't have to come in until 10. I have things to do in the morning. And she's very good about that. She doesn't say we're having some issue you're not entitled to hear about, or even come close. She said she was busy, so there was something she had to take care of, so we would start at 10. But it also seemed to me that what she said to the jury was, and the evidence might end tomorrow, which, if she said that, I think it would be confusing to the jury, because I don't think that they would realize that she would have to be talking only about the Commonwealth case. At least I'm assuming it's only the Commonwealth case. It's not going to be the entire case that will end. But it seemed to me that what she might be saying was that the prosecution case would end tomorrow. And if so, I don't know what time they'll finish tomorrow, because I had on my list of witnesses that looked like they were going to be called, certainly Jim Mutlu, but then Alyssa Kirby, who was a friend of Anna Walshe, and might be able to talk about the tension in the marriage, and maybe even Anna telling her that she had about decided that she wanted the boys with her in Washington, D.C., and was really thinking maybe that she wanted to, that she would move forward for a divorce. I don't know that that's true, but it seems to me that that might be something that Alyssa Kirby would be able to testify to. And then the last witness that we thought might be called was the babysitter. And so if those three are going to testify tomorrow, then if the Commonwealth rests, it would have to be towards the end of the day. If it's only Jim Mutlu who testifies, it'll be the first hour is going to be the voir dire. It may go a little longer. And then he would testify, but I can't imagine that he's going to be on the stand all day. And if he's the last witness that the prosecution is going to call, then it would either be an early day or the defense would start presenting its case. And usually, or often, let me say, a judge will not start the defense case immediately after the prosecution. The judge will allow them a little time. And I think that will depend on when exactly the Commonwealth case ends, always assuming that I'm correct, that's what the judge told the jury today. And, I'm going to hold out a little reluctance to go all the way and say that's what I heard. But if it does end early enough, we may start hearing part of the defense case, because this judge is not someone who is reluctant to start something that other judges would wait or defer till the next day. I mean, a lot of judges don't like to interrupt direct examination. And if you're going to have to go another half hour or 45 minutes or even an hour, they'll do it. They'll do the same thing with cross-examination. And this judge, it hits 4 o'clock. I mean, she hasn't interrupted anybody mid-sentence, I'll give her that, or mid-syllable, but she certainly does cut them off. And she does it also for that 11 o'clock break, cuts them off. So if there is a judge who would be likely to say, you knew that you were going to have to start your case and you knew that this might happen, so I hope your witnesses are here, let's get going, it would be she. So we'll get a chance to see tomorrow if that's the case. But number one, I am not sure that's what she told the jury, that the evidence would all be in tomorrow. And I am not sure how many witnesses the defense will have. And I'm also not sure how long it will go tomorrow, because I have no idea, other than Jim Mutlu, how many witnesses the Commonwealth still has to call. So that's my summary. And there were a lot of not sures in it, if you noticed. I don't mind saying not sure, and I don't mind saying I don't know, because better that than to pretend I know something I don't, or to pretend certainty when I don't. I mean, I think that's the worst thing you can do. On the other hand, it's amusing to me that I sat through this whole thing today, and what I'm saying to you is I don't know. It's just, I mean, you may not be as amused as I am, but I'm kind of amused about it. So let me take some of the questions. Now they're off to the side and it's going to be hard to see them. And I also, if you can put up the people who have become members, I really would like to acknowledge everyone, because I'm really so grateful. It's so amazing to me that anybody would do that. It's gratifying, because I do think that I'm a pretty good teacher, but it's really nice to have people say that I am. It's really kind of sweet. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the support. I appreciate those of you who become members, you proffers who are now following me. I just appreciate it very much. The members, I appreciate. The people who send comments or questions, everything you do, I think, is just wonderful. And it helps me do a better job with the channel. And I can't ask for anything more than that. And so all I can say is I'm really, really, really appreciative. So let me see if I see any questions on my phone, which, by the way, for those of you who suffered me yesterday when I couldn't figure out how to get the questions up on the phone so I could see them, I think I've got that solved with the help of Amber, one of the mods. who I think I think I'm going to be a frustration to all of them, because it's not that I don't try, it's that I don't succeed. I mean, the tech world and the internet world are just not my world. Okay, here's a question from Ain't No Hollowback Girl. Following today's DNA confirmation, will Judge Frenier now advise jury of Brian Walshe's guilty plea to the 2 lesser charges? No. The fact that there's DNA confirmation that his DNA was on some of the things that were found in the trash bins. In the first place, he's already admitted, so I don't know how much the fact that there's actually DNA adds to that. But in the second place, the fact that he's not allowing the guilty pleas has nothing to do with whether he's guilty or not, because he's already pled. It is her worry that if the jury hears that he has pled, that there may be one or more jurors who would say, well, why should we wrestle with whether there's premeditation or not? He's pled to 2 things. We think he'll spend a significant amount of time in prison, so let's not worry about it. I'll vote to acquit, which doubtful that it would lead to an acquittal, but you might get a hung jury. That's her fear. It has nothing to do with the jury not knowing that he's already admitted guilt to something. It's the consequence of the jury knowing that on their deliberations and their willingness to spend the time to really decide if he committed murder 1. Okay. If Brian testifies in the narrative, can he still be cross-examined? The answer is anybody who testifies in the narrative can certainly be cross-examined. And if you saw Robert Tellis, the person who murdered the journalist who had written a negative story about him. This was the guy who was on the city council and he lost that job, and he testified in the narrative and he was cross-examined. But I don't think it will be testimony in the narrative, because the time when a defense lawyer must do that is when he knows for sure that the defendant will perjure herself on the stand. And in this case, I don't believe that there's a way for anyone to say they know for sure. You can say beyond a reasonable doubt, but no one was in that house except the 3 little boys after 1:30 in the morning on New Year's Day. So there is no way to say with absolute certainty he's lying. You can say, I'm almost there, but there's still an opportunity to say, I can have a good faith belief that he's telling the truth, however ridiculous the story is, or that he believes he's telling the truth. And so I don't think he'll be testifying in the narrative. Okay. And this is from Webster Carroll 5. If she died from what he said, why would there be blood? As once the heart stops beating, there would be no blood. I'm confused on this. Love your YouTube. You're amazing. Oh, thank you very much. I'm not a medical person, clearly. And what I know about when blood stops, I get mostly from mystery stories or from listening to experts in other real crimes. But I don't know, and maybe somebody in the chat does, that if you're chopping up a body, even if the blood isn't flowing, is it coagulated in the body or does it flow out? This is not a pleasant topic, actually. So, but what we do know is there was blood. So, you can work backwards from there. There was blood. That we know. So, okay. Do I find Brian's DNA not on more of the items to be suspicious? Or are you in the camp that he was wearing the whatever that outfit is called? I don't know that I find it suspicious, because he was cleaning up a lot. And he probably had gloves, or he might have put gloves on or other things when he was actually doing the dismemberment. What matters is it's her blood, and he has confessed to dismember, essentially he has confessed to it. What he said is he disposed of the body. I don't know that he said what he did when he disposed of the body. But, if you say you disposed of the body and the evidence shows that she was dismembered, then, You have to go through B to get to C. And if C is you disposed of the body and B is the body was dismembered, then you have to have dismembered the body. So I don't know that the fact that his DNA is not on some of the items, it may show that he tried to prevent anybody from being able to identify him as the perpetrator. That may well be true. Is the nanny on the state's witness list? I don't have the full list, but I believe she is or was, because I believe the witness list had more than 100 people on it. And it's hard to believe that in that list of 100, she was not listed, because she's someone who was familiar with the family. And, it's the people who are around all the time that tend to know. Okay. Can I discuss why I think he bought a new bathroom mat, new rugs, and whose slippers were tested? I think, I don't think he had to have done anything upstairs, and I do not believe that the actual dismemberment happened upstairs. I think if it did, there would be some evidence somewhere. Okay. Nurse Kristen says it will not fully coagulate, which means that you are going to get some blood flow. Thank you. But it may well be that when and I don't know where that mat is coming from. Wasn't there also a bathroom in the basement or the first floor? I'm trying to remember. There was somewhere where the washer and dryer was. So there might have been a mat there. And it also could be that he took a mat and he grabbed towels from the bathroom, even though he was doing the dismemberment in the basement. That would make sense to me. In fact, when I was listening today or watching today what he bought and all his efforts to be able to clean up all the blood, I kept thinking to myself, why didn't he buy a big, huge, piece of tarpaulin somewhere and then do whatever he was doing on the tarpaulin so the blood would never have gotten onto the floor or onto the stairs to begin with? So I don't want to help him, but that was the thought I had today. Okay. Beth Gaither, 1214. Can I discuss why? Oh, that was the one that I tried. The new rugs, because he had taken we know that he took part of the old rug or we know that there was DNA on one of the old rugs. The expert had collected samples from it. And it may be that some of what he did was on one of the rugs, so he felt he needed to replace the rugs. I said I won't go over what I had said today about another case. Okay. Am I aware the mother of Brian Walshe has been sued by the landlord of the rental house for back rent and damages? She signed the lease. I think he used rent for supplies. I did not know that, but I know that that case is going on. And apparently the heart of at least a major aspect of the case is he can't sell the house. And I said earlier today that when a house is a murder scene, the sale amount for the house often goes down. People don't want to buy a house where there's been a murder. And in fact, there is in some states, a real estate agent has to disclose to a buyer if there's been a murder or an act of violence in a house that real estate agent is now representing a seller for sale because of that, because the resale value may not be what it is. And so I think that's what the landlord is suing for. It may also be that there was some damage in the house, but I think it's mostly the decrease in value of the property because of the murder. And she's the name on the lease, so she's the one he's going after. And so question, doesn't it show guilt as we watched him buy the cutting tools without any panic? Sure, and that's what the prosecutor will argue. I mean, you heard the defense in opening saying he was in a panic when he found her dead, but all the behaviors, calling on the cell phone when he knows she's dead and leaving messages, where are you, call back, it's chilling. The runs to the store where he looks very calm and collected that are happening the New Year's Day, they're starting to happen. All of that goes to saying that it shows at least he's the kind of person who might kill. There's a lot, I said this before, there is enough evidence. He mentions murder in a couple of those Google searches afterwards. He mentions that serial killer, what was he, the trash bag killer who killed a number of people by dismembering them. He's saying that on January 1. He talks about divorce. There's evidence that he knew that Anna was having the affair, evidence that he had seen the picture that either Anna sent to Fastow or Fastow sent to her with her locket on, and therefore may have suspected or known that she got the locket from Fastow. There are the two searches that he did, plane crash in DC, Anna Walshe dead on December 25, a week before the death. There are the searches on to find out which are the best states for a divorce, and then to find out that Massachusetts is the third worst. Divorce for men, Massachusetts is the third worst. Another one that said divorce in DC. So, you have all those things that are clearly would indicate that he was thinking about it, maybe still not having decided one way or another. And you remember when I read the premeditation instruction last night that the first thing you do is you have to start thinking about doing it for premeditation. The second step is to decide to do it. So the thinking about it can well be demonstrated by the things that happened ahead of time. Then you have to have the decision to do it, and then you do it. And all of that can happen in seconds, frankly. But in this case, I think the Commonwealth can say the thinking about it happens at least by December 25, and the decision may not have been fully formed until New Year's Eve, whatever triggered it, and then the killing occurred. So, okay. Am I concerned that the evidence of an affair will turn the jury against our victim? Not really. I think in part, and it's not that I condone this sort of thing. I mean, my view is if the marriage is going sour, and sometimes marriages do, then, make a clean break, tell somebody, and don't go behind somebody's back. That just doesn't strike me as the right way to do it. Although I can understand how people get into those situations. But there's so, if you're going to worry about, look, she had an affair and this is a terrible thing for a mother to do, without telling her husband, I want out of this marriage. It's just not good conduct. We wouldn't recommend it as the ethical and moral way to proceed. I give you all that. But he is chopping up the body of someone he loves and running around to the stores, buying cleanser and buying other things, taking his 6-year-old with him as he's doing some of it, doing what he did in the house where the 3 little boys are upstairs and one of them might have awakened and heard something or saw something. And he's living on her money. And they know he's got this. Do they know? I think they do know that he's got the conviction. I think some of it's come in, but living on her money. And, all of it, it seems to me, whatever she did in the mind of a juror who doesn't condone the behavior and doesn't like her because she did it, there's an avalanche of why not to like him. And in any event, they're told, you have to focus on the evidence, not this other stuff. And I think juries try. So no, I don't think I'm worried about it. I know I shouldn't say it that way. I'm not worried about it. Would I agree that the home goods store should have auto alert to local police when obvious kill? Well, that's Home Depot. I think something should happen. I mean, I was imagining myself being in Home Depot with someone who is walking around with a mask and gloves and has that cart full of all those items paying in cash. Now, you might say this is somebody maybe who can't qualify for a credit card, doesn't have good credit, and he's going to be cleaning a house and wants it to look like in good shape. It certainly would cause you to look twice if it happened. So I don't know that it would be a Home Depot alert, because I do not believe that a store wants to get into the middle. If you make a report and it turns out to be wrong, and bad publicity comes out of it, you're looking at a potential lawsuit. But yeah, it was amazing. Okay. Are there other questions? Otherwise, I want to showcase everybody who became a member and thank you all individually. I don't see any other questions up, so why don't we do that? Yeah. Okay. Deborah Fenolio, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Dorothy W17, again, I really appreciate it. And Libby JD73. And oh, here's Nacho's mom again, who I asked whether that's what she serves the kids for dinner. I'm on your side if you do, by the way. And the Cake 933, thank you, thank you. And Lori Terra 5443, thank you. And Nurse Kristen, who was my first YouTube member, so thank you very much. And Ollie 1951 became a YouTube member, and Tiff Ritter became a YouTube member, and Josephine Santamora, a YouTube member. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. So thank you very, very much. Okay. And let's see, this is Ansic Psychology. Oh, Ansic forensic psychology. What that would be? Yes, forensic psychology. Oh, thank you. Look at that money. Don't listen to me. I mean, I'm just so overwhelmed by this that I'm not exercising the kind of decorum that I should be. I'll be better tomorrow. I'll go back. I wanted to see that. She said something that I wanted to read. Oh, there you go. I know the fact that he has pled out on the other two charges is inadmissible, but I feel like a fraud was perpetrated on me if I were a juror. Well, there are a lot of things if you were a jury that you don't hear about, that you might after the fact feel was not fair that you didn't hear about them. But the court and the evidence rules are trying to confine the evidence you hear to what seems to be necessary to give the defendant a fair trial. And some things that are kept out, I might think, gee, they should be let in. But that's why it's done. And that's why you have sidebars, and that's why there are motions before trial. It is not unique to this. Jessica Funk 7775 became a member. Thank you so much. Cooler by the Lake. That's a nice title. 30 became a YouTube member also. Thank you so much, all of you. Oh, Miami Dottie, another gift. And I didn't read what she said because we're going too fast. But okay. Thank you, Miami Dottie. Echo G3, a YouTube member. I love some of your names. They're really creative. Oh, I don't want to say that because the way I would pronounce it probably would be bad for YouTube. Let me spell it. BCHBU. Oh, no, Beach Bum. Oh, I can say that. Beach Bum 3802. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Kim Hastings 5580. Thank you so much for being a member. I hope that what I do going forward warrants your confidence. Rock and Roll 888, YouTube member. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Vexation Parrot. Parrots would vex me. I'm no end. Became a member. Thank you. My Father's Alibi. Hold that one up. Don't move that one. That's Allison Galvani, who has a YouTube channel, My Father's Alibi, which is now not active because when she was 5 years old, her father killed her mother. And that crime went unprosecuted for a number of years for a number of reasons. And Allison has been fighting the good fight to get the prosecutor out in California to reopen the case. And a couple of weeks ago, she succeeded, and he's going to be tried sometime next year. He's in jail right now and evidently doesn't have a lawyer right now. It seems as though maybe he hasn't decided whether to pay or not. But anyway, she's done that, and she deserves all the accolades in the world for sticking to it and succeeding to get prosecution for her mother. And it's just a great story. So Allison, thank you for becoming a member. And then Astro Virgin 09 became a YouTube member. Thank you so much. Boy, there are a lot of these. I mean, Pete 4988 became a YouTube member. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. And again, tomorrow, the first hour will be the voir dire, and then they're going to go into the trial. And I had somebody text me on my phone a while ago saying it's just a crazy case. And, I'm coming to believe that all these cases are just crazy cases. The Adelsons are all crazy cases. And the Corey Richards thing, Rickens thing that's coming up, and the Simpson. I mean, it's just, and there's so many of them that come up in domestic situations. And I know I don't have to tell any of you this, but if you're in a bad marriage, that's what divorce laws are for. In fact, when I did a video that is now Yeah, it's the one that's running now that I just put up on Donna Adelson and whether her murder one conviction will stand. And the wife there, who's complicit in the murder of her husband, she's having an affair with her husband's best friend. Here's what she is reported to have said. She could not get a divorce because there's a stigma attached to divorce. Now, where is the person who says there's a stigma attached to divorce, so let's murder him? Oh my, Snap Happy 2.0, 2.0, 2.0. Ah, Snap Happy 2.0. Thank you so much. But, let me recommend, I know we all agree, we can hold hands on this and sing Kumbaya. Don't murder your spouse, no matter how despicable. Get a divorce. I guess that's what I will leave you with tonight. Get a divorce. Thank you so much, all you proffers. Thank you so much for all of you who have subscribed. Thank you, Surviving the Survivor, for gifting 5 memberships. And that's Joel Walden's channel, which I assume most, if not all of you have seen. And if not, you really should subscribe and watch him. And he was kind enough to let me co-stream with him so that I was able to sort of build my channel, and that's what we've been doing every day. So thank you very much. And then E. Gramishish, I like that, is a YouTube member. I think, there was a witness the other day who was putting ish on everything, on things I've never heard an ish added to. Okay. And now there's Lassa Sophia. Thank you. Ely Hopi, isn't that cute? 28 became a YouTube member. Boy, those are really clever names. Mine is just Ask Prof Jo. It's not clever at all, but these are really clever. Okay, I was leaving with you. Get a divorce if you're in a bad marriage. Don't go murder anybody. And I do think that's the right way to stop. So, ciao a tutti. This has been fun. I hope that the recap tonight was helpful, useful, that maybe you learned something, or at least you were entertained. So long.